Welcome to NBA Now by Chat Sports. I am Nick Roloff, and we're talking some trade rumors on today's show, focusing in on the Dallas Mavericks big man Anthony Davis, as well as the big man out west, Domantas Sabonis, currently playing for the Sacramento Kings. And we're going to get started with the Dallas Mavericks big man Anthony Davis because there are rumors out there that a blow-up of the Mavericks roster could be coming. Obviously, the news of the week in the NBA world was the fact that the Mavericks fired Nico Harrison, the infamous GM who ultimately pulled off the Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic trade last deadline in February. Well, it has not worked out. Dallas is among one of the worst teams in the NBA and the Western Conference. Anthony Davis has consistently been hurt, and it looks like maybe the worst trade in NBA history. And this could lead to absolute changes happening to their roster. Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated this week said, as of what's next, I'm told that Mark Cuban, the former majority owner, now minority owner, who was exiled from basketball operations by Nico Harrison, is back at the table and is told that radical roster changes have already been discussed by Dallas's new brain trust. Big changes could be happening and coming to the Big D. And it is ugly in Dallas. The fan base is thrilled that Nico Harrison is gone. They've got one of the worst rosters in the entire NBA. The lack of ball handling in the point guard position is really concerning. The plan to have Cooper Flagg play a lot of the point guard was ultimately a bad decision, and that is not an indictment on Cooper Flagg. It's more of an indictment on him being played out of position early in his career. But that roster was not constructed well. A lot of size, a lot of injury-prone players with no Kyrie Irving, no true point guard. It's ugly in Dallas, which could lead to Anthony Davis being traded as well as others. Before we get into more of the trade rumors, likes leaderboard this past week. NFL Daily got 156 likes. College Football Now got 112. I'm tasked to try to top that here at NBA Now. So help me out, hit that thumbs up icon, and let's become the highest liked video of the week on Chat Sports. But when you look at the Mavs trade candidates, obviously we're focusing in on Anthony Davis today, but I also think Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, and Daniel Gafford could all be dealt before the trade deadline in February, and I would probably put it that's more likely that two of the players on this list get traded away than just one or zero. I do really believe Klay Thompson will be traded, and I believe one of Gafford, Anthony Davis, and Kyrie will be dealt. Well, this week, ESPN's Tim McMahon said it's uncertain what the trade market for Anthony Davis would ultimately be due to his durability issues. And yeah, he's still a dominant force on both sides, but he just never is on the floor. Several league sources are adamant that the Dallas Mavericks should be gauging the market for the big man over the next couple of months. And it is fascinating to have a discussion on what Anthony Davis's trade value would be across the NBA, because when he is on the floor, he is absolutely dominant. He's going to give you 20 points. He's going to give you 11 boards. He's going to average probably about a couple blocks a night. But the question you always have and come back to with Anthony Davis is he going to be able to be on the floor when you need him to and in the postseason? Because he has been unable to consistently stay healthy throughout his career, and it's really ramped up over the past 5 seasons. Although he did have a strong year in 23-24, he's missed about 20 games plus in each of the last 4 seasons, but that 1 year. And his contract just makes it so much more of a gamble, if you will. He's being paid over $50 million. He's on a supermax contract for the remainder of this deal. And I'll be honest here, usually you get these type of superstars opting out of their contract in a player option scenario to fetch a larger guaranteed deal. I don't think that's going to be the case with Anthony Davis. I think he opts in to that player option in 27-28, worth $62.7 million, because no team would be willing to give him probably even close to $50 million on a multi-year contract when he's that old due to his durability and injury concerns. And before I look at some potential destinations, let me know. You predict it for me. Do the Dallas Mavericks trade Anthony Davis prior to the NBA trade deadline in February? Pin comment on today's show. Type Y for yes or N for no. Well, if they do, here are the 5 most likely destinations, in my opinion. A lot of buzz around the Chicago Bulls right now, potentially trading for Anthony Davis. I don't think that would be a smart decision by that front office, but I do believe they need a big man of the future. And if they believe that Modest Buzelis could be something, they like Josh Giddey and what he's provided early this year, maybe they trade for Anthony Davis. I just don't see why they would do that. Miami could link up Davis and Bam Adebayo. They need some size. I don't think they ultimately do it, but it's not the most far-fetched thing in the world. We know the Boston Celtics have been intrigued with Anthony Davis in the past. They need a big man, could trade a couple first-round picks. Maybe what even if he's worth. Like, I don't know what Anthony Davis's value is. We'll talk about that here in just 1 second. But I think the Warriors could be interested. Maybe like a Jimmy Butler and some other young guys, like Kuminga trade for him. The Milwaukee Bucks certainly could trade Miles Turner to pair up Giannis and Anthony Davis. It's just such a tough thing to try to decide what Anthony Davis's trade value ultimately is. Because of his age, because of his durability concerns, is he going for salary, one young guy and 2 first-round picks, 1 first-round pick? Like, to me, if you had to project it, I think more or less it's probably 1 first-round selection and salary, but also like a solid player in return. Like, I talked about this over on the Heat Report. If you don't know, I host the Heat Report here at Chat Sports. Like, I think an Andrew Wiggins, Terry Rozier, and like a Pallel Larson plus a first-round pick could make sense. Like, that's kind of where I think a deal could ultimately go in a scenario. I just don't imagine teams, due to that contract and durability concerns, offering multiple first-round picks and young talent to get Anthony Davis with all of the concerns that we've already laid out on today's show. More coming up here in a second, but this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this basketball season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. It's so simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks now offers stacks, meaning you could pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Steph Curry's points, 3-pointers, and assists? Well, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on PrizePicks. And there's a lot of action in basketball today. I'm going more than Davion Mitchell blocks and steals, more than Mikal Bridges 5 assists, and more than Norman Powell 3-point attempts in that Knicks-Heat Cup matchup tonight on Friday. So if you want to join me and the millions of others on PrizePicks, download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. That link is in the description and comments of today's video. Segue from one big man in the Western Conference to another actually on the West Coast, that being Domantas Sabonis with the Sacramento Kings. And the Kings are just not playing good basketball this season, which could lead to some of their veterans ultimately being dealt. And Sabonis has been apparently a hot name. Sam Amick went on a local Sacramento sports radio station and says, as it relates to Sabonis, my understanding is there are at least a few teams that have raised their hand to say, yeah, that's somebody we want to talk about if the Kings ultimately are sellers at the trade deadline. And the question that I have is who is trading for Sabonis? We'll get that to you here in a second. But I also think there's a handful of players on the Kings that ultimately will or can be traded. They have veterans like Malik Monk, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, the aforementioned Domantas Sabonis. And with the Kings being so bad in the West right now, 3-9 as we're filming this on Friday, 13th in the Western Conference, it's hard to project them kind of turning around their season and becoming competitive in a really tough Western Conference. That team is just not constructed very well whatsoever, and you have to imagine they will be a losing team in February when the trade deadline rolls around. And if that's the case, it would probably behoove them to trade off some of their veterans to get cap relief for the future, but also accumulate some first-round picks, because Sacramento is not a destination franchise. You're going to have to build that team through the draft, and they need to acquire more draft picks, certainly over the next couple of years when there's a lot of good young talent coming out. We'll talk specifically about Sabonis here in a second, but we've got you covered all season long, and when the trade deadline rolls around in February, we will ramp up our NBA coverage and be live on trade deadline day, so subscribe for the top-notch NBA content you need. Sabonis is not having the typical Domantas Sabonis year that you would anticipate him having, that we've seen consistently over the past 3 to 4 seasons. Like, yeah, he's still getting his standard 15 to 18 points a game and getting his double-digit rebounds, but the part that's so fascinating is the difference in playmaking. They have not ran the offense through Sabonis as much as they have in the past. They've gone away from using him as the playmaker at the top of the key in that hub and more used him as a traditional back to the basket big or a roll man after setting a screen. And another reason why Sabonis is having a down year is that his three-point efficiency has decreased. He used to be able to shoot 35% from beyond the arc in his early career days in Indiana, Oklahoma City, and his first couple of years in Sacramento. And that's just fallen off a cliff. He's not even shooting more than 3 attempts a night. He's shooting 17%. And with his contract being where it is, no player options, 3 years guaranteed left on his deal, all being paid $40 million or more, close to 50 at this point. Like, you just have to ask. Sabonis has borderline declined over the past couple of years. The playmaking numbers aren't what they used to be. And with that contract, is there that big of a market for Sabonis? Now, Sam Amick said there are a couple teams that have allegedly raised their hand and said, yeah, that's someone we're interested in. I'm just having a hard time figuring out who it could be, because you want me to expect there are teams out there that would be willing to probably match the trade value that Sacramento's going to ask for, which is obviously a lot of salary and $40+ million, probably multiple first-round picks. I doubt he just goes for one because he is still relatively young. Like, what team is trading 2 first-round picks? Are the Kings willing to deal him away from a first-round pick in salary? If they are, yeah, sure, there's probably teams out there. I just don't really imagine many teams are going to meet a 2 first-round pick asking point. And unless Sacramento's fine taking like 1 first-round pick in return, who is trading for Sabonis? A big that isn't a big that really can space the floor and isn't someone good defensively whatsoever. He's one of the worst defensive bigs in the NBA. He's slow of feet. I don't know why a team would really push their chips in the table and trade for Domantas Sabonis. But you let me know. Drop a team down in the comment section that you think should ultimately trade for Sabonis. Who could one of those teams that raised their hand and been interested in be? Let me know your thoughts. And if you want more on the NBA, go follow me over on Twitter at Nick_Roloff, talking NBA basketball every single day. And I like to kind of converse with other NBA fans. So go give me a follow.